What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we are giving you a state of the market and stock picks for June 17th, 2022. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as I do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead. Now, let's get this thing started out. We had overnight digestion from Powell, essentially the Fed yesterday, coming out of 75, very historic level that we haven't seen since 1994. And the market liked it to an extent, as it did pop right back, essentially roughly around that 75-point basis move that we've talked about. And then what was concerning from yesterday was the fact that the forward guidance, the forward outlook looks extremely hawkish from the Fed. This morning, we even got the Bank of England with another 25-point basis move coming in. First thing this morning, we started selling, and then there is a lot of other different avenues and aspects going on as far as oil in itself. Started plummeting today as well. So that in itself can weigh heavily on the market, just like the banks do, considering that the oil has been overextended for quite a while. It'd be interesting to see. We also do have a Putin. He has an announcement coming up as well. So that is something you need to keep in mind. From rumor has it, he's been battling cancer. I don't know how true that is. There is video out there of him kind of almost having trouble trying to stand up and looking, grimacing almost like he's been in a lot of pain. So I don't know what is going to come of that. That's something to keep in mind, and something that could build up over the weekend if anything does come of that. We need to also remember that we have options expiration. We have a lot of big money coming off of options and rolling over into new contracts. So being said, we had quite the plummet today. Chips took one heck of a beating today. We have to also understand a huge percentage of chips are essentially coming out of Taiwan as well. And so not to say that this really matters at this point, but it could again come of some way, and this could be another potential black swan as well. This is why the U.S. has been backing Taiwan and everything that they do, and they don't want China to go after them because of the fact that they produce so many of the semiconductor chips and everything out in Taiwan. So being said, there is a lot going on moving forward. Technical wise, this is not a good stance at all. The fact that we broke even down below the channel now, my thesis could be going to crap, if you will, with this move down. We have to see, because of the fact that everything is really bad, and the fact that the Fed has really left the door open for whatever comes is what the market doesn't like. Okay, we can price in 100 points, but who knows if that's what's going to be able to cover what the Fed's going to come up with, what they got up their sleeve. And again, they won't know until they see numbers come down. So they'll continue to raise rates as much as they can until they can get a grasp of inflation. Now, being said, we are roughly around that area, that 36, 39. This is kind of that area I've been talking about for the 100-point basis move. Again, if we went off this one, obviously it was not off the body candle. If we had gone off the bottom wick and looked at 5%, we could have hit that today roughly, pretty close. So 4.73. So we're close to that 100-point basis move. Roughly around here is where we're kind of thinking where it was. But we have to see if that's the case. Now, if that's priced in, are we going to bounce from there? Typically, again, you hit these major supports, you're going to get a big bounce out of it. So tomorrow, I think, could be really interesting. You'll get a retest roughly around this the 37.20 mark. You're going to get a hard rejection off of this. Now, the biggest key here is, are we going to continue to rattle in this range here and then break back in like we do when we try to do a breakout? Are we going to break back up and over? because I can tell you one thing: if we do break here, things are going to get nasty, and then at that point, my thesis is completely shot, and at that point, it's just a free fall and panic. In my honest opinion, if we do break this, it's just a massive panic, and then at that point, nothing is going to make sense, and things are just going to sell off. Again, because it could be of deflation, worries of deflation, worries of stagflation at that point. People aren't going to be buying as much stuff. You're going to stunt growth. You go into recession mode. But understand that it won't last. It typically doesn't last long in the stock market. Against once all the flash wears off, the stock market becomes neutral to it and it starts pushing up again by design. So being said, we do have 2 weeks before the Q2 ends. And then from that point, we'll start getting an earnings mode. So whatever amount of selling, once we do find a base here, I think we will start to rally and start slowly getting to that preparation. We might go another week of just straight chop. We might go into another week of just straight chop till we can kind of consolidate and build a strong base and start pushing back up for, again, that rotation into earnings. But we definitely have to be careful and see what happens around here. Again, there's a lot of different things that come into play. And this is something you have to be mindful too. When you are coming into the market, and I know a lot of people get upset about analysis and they think, who's doing stock market analysis? And this is ridiculous. There's no way you can get a grasp of it. This is why I do daily reports, because this market sentiment does change. You have to realize, even for myself, like I take positions based off of market sentiment, and that changes every morning. So even from 8:30 in the morning Eastern Standard Time till 12 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time, the sentiment is pretty solid for that particular point if there's no events coming up in the morning. And then that if even that sentiment changes in the afternoon, and so I adjust accordingly. And I only trade options primarily in the first 2 hours of the day. Sometimes I'll take other options throughout the day. It really just depends on the sentiment and what's going on, what events are going on throughout the day. Mainly after that first 2 hours, I transition into shares, and I'll take shares positions so they don't get chopped up, because at that point you're starting to mess with algorithms, and they will tag you out, right? You have to realize that too. So any new headline news is very the algorithms are very sensitive at that time, so they'll chew up contracts. And then as far as like shares and stuff, you have a pretty tight stop. So if it does, you at least try to break even on those things without having to worry about getting filled on an options contract. So nonetheless, there's a lot going on. I don't like the position of this. Again, we have to see where we land tomorrow, but really watching again that 37.20. See if we get a hard rejection and come back down and retest this level. I think it's a very strong possibility. Again, these levels here start buttering. I think at that point we were sheer panic. And then again, it's up in the air where we land at that point. We don't want to see sheer panic. The market or the Fed don't really want to see it, but right now their concern is not the stock market. Their concern is inflation. So you have to, again, be very mindful of that. Bitcoin sitting around that 20K mark. Again, we have to see. I think it's really just the market. Again, this is all just, I think the only reason, again, we broke down was because of the Fed. This is sheerly the Fed pushing rates and driving people out of crypto, in my opinion. So that is what it is there. And I think this will, again, run in parallel with the market. But you have to wait till the market can get its footing before it can start pushing up. Hopefully the next cycle of earnings will help do that. But again, we just had the Fed. We just had the numbers released. You're going to get panic. You're going to get digestion. It's going to sell for a couple of days until it finds its footing. And then we'll start pushing up from that point. Again, unless something else, new event is announced. If new emergency rate raises are happening, that could be quite concerning, and it could really bring down the market a lot more. Again, it's not been a sheer flash crash or anything like that. It's been a very slow, very calculated move. You can tell that this move has been driven by the Fed. Not that they purposely did it. They were going off of what they were doing to gauge inflation, and you can see the market has moved in that fashion. But again, tomorrow, Tesla, again, always a big one. I always watch this one for any of them. I always watch this one for the upside. Waiting base. We really don't want this to break the 617 tomorrow. If we do gap down again tomorrow, that's going to put us at a very dangerous level. This, I think, will break back down and then potentially sell down to 558 is what I'm looking at. You have that monthly sitting right at that 507 mark. So watching that tomorrow. MU is an interesting one. Chips are really big and beat up really bad. Tomorrow, if we do have any kind of pop, I'm really kind of looking at that, the 58.37 for MU tomorrow. Any kind of chip has really just been beaten up really bad. Looking for the retest. So even AMD looking for the 85 retest tomorrow. If we can retest that tomorrow, looking for another potential puts. Again, the sentiment is down. So until that proves me wrong, every pump is going to be shorted, in my opinion, till it changes. And again, you're going to need some catalyst, and that's why I have daily calls, because that catalyst can change. You can see the movement in the markets, and then you can take position accordingly on that. So again, if you're long-term investing, again, it's small doses throughout this whole period that I've been talking about helps. Don't lump sum into anything. Slowly average down into those companies that the average person off the street, again, can tell you who they are and what they do. Is those kind of companies you want to be looking at right now, and then otherwise just waiting on everything else, or just staying cash. Again, not financial advice, but I think that's the best approach to take these markets. And then as far as anything else tomorrow, I think those are some of the biggest players. I've been kind of slowly watching oil here. Oil could, even though it plummeted quite a bit today, you do have to be careful, because this thing, I think, could pump right back up. It had a very strong support. Depending on how we open, if oil can open above 92.70, could get another push up, but it's got some resistance. I think you're just going to make a higher low, potentially get rejected back at the 95.50, and then start selling off more. Again, we don't want a lot of these things to keep pushing up. The commodities are something to watch. If you start seeing commodities flip just like the banks, that's just telltale sign that the market's going to sell, because people are going into commodities. Banks look like complete trash. Got a solid break in the 116. It's trying to push up. We'll see if they can retest here. And if, things look like they could rally just because it's really, really overextended. And when you start seeing these wicks, the market wants to try to start pushing up. But again, there's been a lot of bad news. And if we have options expiration, does anything, again, really depends on how we hold overnight. If we hold, that could be a positive for a rally. If we gap down, it's purely just short whatever pump you get, and then the market's just going to continue to crater. Again, if we break that key level on SPX, we are in for it, and we will definitely be in sheer panic mode at that point. GS, again, really struggling here. Attempted to retest the 294, rejected, but it is holding this 281 mark. But if it does come below that 281 mark, again, definitely something to be watching pre-market in the hour before open, around 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Be looking and seeing where your commodities are, where your banks are. Look at value. Again, I judge a lot off of BA. Surprisingly, BA's had a lot of really good news. Did get its first rejection off the 136 mark. First break, try to hold above, break, retest. This could potentially really start selling. If value starts selling, that's been one of the hottest ones. If it starts selling, the market could go with it. Tech is definitely not doing good. You don't want Amazon breaking 102. If it does, could be potential trouble. Push up to the 112 mark. You're going to get a hard rejection there. A lot of things are setting up for really hard rejections here. And again, like I said, Tesla could be really bad there. But that's pretty much what I got. Again, it is Friday. It is a long weekend. A lot of negative news. Could see a lot of bloodshed tomorrow. I might see a pump. It's really hard to tell. It looks like we have to see where we land. If we gap up, we could get a rally that sinks back down to the lower levels. If we gap down, any pump that you get essentially short, because that thing is really going to start selling after that. So again, none of this is financial advice. If you don't feel comfortable in this market, obviously do not be in this market. It's not the market for anybody new entering the market. You definitely sit and wait. Even a lot of veterans are getting chopped up in this market. It's not a good market, and like I said, I have very little exposure to a lot of the market because I don't like the market majority of the day. So nonetheless, go ahead and drop a like button if you made it this far. I appreciate you, and we'll see you guys next time.